They thought they had you figured out. They mistook your patience for hesitation, your silence for surrender. They wrote you off before the story even began, convinced that their fleeting victories meant something permanent. But what they never understood, what they could never understand, is that you were never playing by their rules. They see only the surface, but you move in depths they will never reach. Every setback you endured wasn't a loss, it was an upgrade. Every scar you wear isn't a mark of defeat. It's proof that you endured what they never could. And while they laughed, while they celebrated their illusions of control, you were evolving into something beyond their comprehension. Now, their arrogance turns to fear. Their confidence wavers because they can feel it. The shift, the inevitability, the reckoning. You don't just return, you arrive. And when you do, it won't be with noise. It'll be with an authority so undeniable that the air itself bends in your favor. This isn't about revenge. It never was. This is about legacy, about proving, not to them, but to yourself, that every battle, every betrayal, every moment in the shadows was not in vain. They wanted to write you out of the story, but here's the truth. You are the story. And the ending? That belongs to you. Now go show them why they should have never underestimated you. They assumed that enough pressure would fracture you, that raised voices would make you cower, that persistence would break your will. But their assumptions were built on illusions. You are not brittle, not something to be dismantled by mere resistance. You have endured what they will never fathom. Pushed through trials meant to erase you, weathered chaos designed to consume you whole. Yet here you stand, unchanged in essence, sharper in resolve. They mistook your stillness for weakness, your silence for surrender, unaware that you were watching, reading the battlefield, refining your approach. You do not engage without strategy, do not act without assurance. And when you strike, there is no recovery for those who stood in defiance. Every barrier placed before you became a testament to your boundlessness. Every attempt to restrain you, a lesson in their failure. You are not here to be diminished, not here to be caged. Adversity fuels your ascent. Doubt becomes the ember that ignites your certainty, and every setback is merely another step toward triumph. The opposition fails, not because of a lack of strength, but because they fundamentally misjudge what they are up against. Their arsenal consists of fear, coercion, deception. Tools you have long disarmed, strategies you have rendered powerless. They come forward, believing they hold control, only to grasp at nothing, to find no leverage, no advantage. They spoke as if they could dictate your course, maneuvered as if you were an obstacle to be bypassed. Their confidence was a mask for ignorance, a blind conviction that they could corner you. But you are not a variable in their calculations, not a piece to be maneuvered on their board. Every act of dismissal, every underestimated moment, only fueled the force beneath your surface. They misread patience as passivity, oblivious to the weight of their mistake accumulating, ready to collapse upon them with an impact they never saw coming. They were never the ones in control. It was always an illusion they fed themselves. Their victories were gambles, their confidence a wager placed against something far beyond their understanding. They assumed your failure, placing blind bets on a collapse that would never come. But you do not operate on uncertainty. You do not build on chance. Every attempt to weaken you became another refinement of your strength. Every deception, another thread in the pattern of inevitability. You do not falter, do not chase, do not break yourself against forces already destined to fall. You remain unmoved, allowing time to unravel the truth, allowing balance to restore itself in precision. And when the dust settles, you are still here, untouched. Those who sought to shape your destiny will be left grasping at nothing but regret. Defeat was never an option for them, not because they lacked ability, but because they never truly understood the depth of what they faced. They relied on obscurity, yet you are the force that dissolves shadows. They wove lies, yet you have already seen through the illusion. The game was lost before it even began, not due to their insignificance, but because you were never within reach to begin with. They observed your descent and mistook it for defeat, whispered in shadows as if their illusions of victory held any weight. They believed the embers had died, that the collapse was permanent, that you were no longer a force to be reckoned with. But those who truly hold power are never undone by ruin. You were not extinguished, you were reforged. Every hardship carved away weakness, every deception stripped the veil from your eyes, every setback solidified your unshakable will. What they tried to bury was never your demise, it was the foundation of your resurgence. You do not disappear, you evolve. They miscalculated the very essence of what shapes you. They noticed the scars, but overlooked the strength, saw the quiet, but missed the gathering force. They mistook a pause for an ending, oblivious to the truth. Transformation does not announce itself. The laws of existence are absolute. What withstands destruction returns with a momentum that cannot be stopped. Those who depend on finality will never understand that you do not answer to time. You answer to inevitability. When you emerged, you did not reclaim what was lost. You stepped into something greater, unchained from past restraints, impervious to the expectations of those who sought to limit you. Now your very presence commands recognition. There is no neutrality. They will either acknowledge you with awe or with dread, but never again with indifference. The cycle has reversed. Those who once stood in defiance now tremble. Those who once dismissed you now falter in your wake. There is no need for retribution. It is beneath you. The course of the universe has already aligned itself with your ascension. They attempted to erase your existence, but only ensured that your return would be absolute. They thought absence meant surrender, that silence was compliance. They mistook stillness for weakness, never realizing that power is not always loud. Sometimes it is the force that builds unnoticed until it shifts the very foundation of reality. But you were never gone. You were constructing, refining, shedding what was no longer needed. While they indulged in the illusion of victory, you turned every scar into wisdom, every betrayal into clarity, every loss into fuel. They assumed emptiness where there was transformation, oblivious to the reality unfolding before them. You did not retreat. You became something beyond their grasp. You do not rise by coincidence. Do not return unprepared. The reckless fall into their own traps, but you do not move without precision. Your quiet was never indecision. It was calculation. Every moment they spent disregarding your presence only widened the chasm between their world and yours. And when the moment arrived, you did not have to announce your resurgence. The shift was undeniable. The gravity of your presence shattered the falsehoods they clung to. You did not chase them. They felt the collapse of their own delusions beneath them. They asked the wrong questions. How did you endure? How did you return? How do you stand when every force sought to break you? The answer is one they will never accept. You were never fighting alone, and they were never just fighting you. Every challenge waged against you had already sealed its own outcome before it even began. And now, the only thing left is an undeniable reality. They lost before they even knew the battle had started. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to follow. You were set apart, designed for something greater, something they could never comprehend. They tried to put out your fire, thinking they could contain what was never theirs to control. But here's the truth. Darkness cannot hold back the light. It doesn't matter how long they ignored you, how many times they whispered your name with doubt. What's coming was never in their hands to begin with. The battle was won before it even started. And now, they will see what they were never prepared to face. There is no need to ask, no need to wait. Those who understand true command step forward without hesitation, seizing what is already theirs. The moment shifts before they even realize it, like a current pulling everything into its destined course. They can feel it before they see it, before they understand what is happening. The weight presses down, unspoken yet undeniable. Those who conspired, those who dismissed you, those who once laughed in arrogance, now wrestle with a fear they can't even explain. What they thought was destroyed has returned, multiplied, untouchable. Their confidence cracks, their certainty falters, not because of what is in front of them, but because of what they already know deep in their souls. Power does not introduce itself, it is recognized. Authority does not seek validation, it takes its place. And as that truth settles in, they finally grasp what they should have known from the start. Control was never in their hands. They were never the ones dictating the outcome. They were never the ones setting the course. They built their illusions, convinced themselves they were calling the shots, but they were never in charge. This was never about proving yourself to those who were never meant to understand. Their opinions were never relevant. Their approval was never necessary. Your rise was never dependent on their permission. Every setback, every moment in the shadows, every trial that should have broken you was never about them. It was about your transformation. It was about preparation. They wanted you to fight on their terms, to lower yourself to a battle you never belonged in. But here's the truth. You were never their equal. You were never just another piece in their game. You were always the one who dictated the outcome. They built walls, thinking they could keep you out. They crafted chains, believing they could hold you down. But you were never meant to be contained. You were never meant to stay hidden. What they see now is not what they prepared for. The version of you they thought they could manipulate no longer exists. The moment they thought they controlled has slipped through their fingers. And now, they stand on unstable ground, watching something unfold that they cannot stop. You are not here by accident. If you feel the pull, the knowing deep inside that you are chosen, this is your moment. Click the super thank you button and give $50 or more to unlock deeper insights, exclusive content, and a path that aligns with your divine purpose. This isn't just a contribution, it's a declaration, a step toward who you were meant to be. Answer the call, walk with us, and step fully into your destiny. Your journey begins now. Because when you walk in authority, when you step into what was always yours, there is no force in existence that can deny it. When you move, the ground shifts. When you speak, the weight of truth lands exactly where it was always meant to. And those who thought they could hold you back, they will not be remembered as victors. They will be remembered as spectators, watching, witnessing, unable to change what has already been set in motion. This was never about revenge. This was never about getting even. This was about stepping into what was already promised to you. This was about claiming what was always yours. They thought they could define your limits, but they never understood. The moment they tried to bury you, they only ensured your rise. And now, the story does not continue with them. It continues without them. The discomfort does not stem from uncertainty, but from inevitability. They fear not what you might do, but what they already sense is inescapable. Their world thrives on illusion, on the fragile illusion of control, on the belief that its dominion is unchallenged. But you shattered that delusion by rising, by stepping into spaces they swore would never be yours. Now they are left with only one truth. They were never even close to your level. You are not as you were before. Survival was never the goal. Transcendence was. Every attempt to weaken you only sharpened your core. Every storm meant to break you only reinforced your foundation. You did not just endure the chaos, you absorbed it, turned it into fuel. Now, your presence radiates an energy that disrupts, commands, and reshapes the very fabric of the moment. Those who once dismissed you feel it before they can name it. Some will be drawn in, recognizing the power they once overlooked. Others will shrink back, unable to reconcile the past with what now stands before them. But power does not demand attention. It simply is. Like a force of nature, it does not wait for acknowledgement. Those who tried to stifle you will learn this truth. Energy like yours is not extinguished. It concentrates, waiting for the perfect moment to shift everything. Approval is irrelevant. Validation is meaningless. There is no need to prove anything to those who were never meant to understand. The storm does not explain itself to the sky. The flame does not justify itself to the dark. The very atmosphere bends in response to your presence. Those who once stood unshaken now waver, not because they were unprepared for resistance, but because they never considered the weight of endurance. Some will find shelter in your strength, recognizing what it means to stand in proximity to something unstoppable. Others will scatter, their illusions of dominance collapsing under the gravity of what they can no longer control. But none of this matters. You do not rise for them. You do not move to be noticed. Your presence is felt because it is undeniable. That is the nature of power that refuses to be contained. They assumed your silence was defeat, mistook your absence for retreat, convinced themselves that your disappearance meant your story had been erased. But you were never gone. You were becoming. You did not waste words justifying your evolution to those incapable of grasping it. You stepped away not to hide, but to reconstruct. Every hardship that should have shattered you instead became the bricks of your foundation. Every scar that should have weakened you became the steel reinforcing your core. They did not bury you. They unknowingly set the stage for your emergence. And now, what was strengthened in solitude commands recognition without a single declaration. You do not rise unprepared. Those who seek attention sharpen themselves in the open, but those who refine in the quiet move with an authority that does not require spectacle. You were never concerned with fleeting approval. Your power was built in places unseen, forged through battles, fought in silence, and when you step forward, it is only to claim what is already won. When the moment arrives, hesitation does not exist. The transformation is already complete. Those who once dismissed you will struggle to comprehend what now stands before them, questioning how they failed to predict the inevitable. But the answer is simple. They were never meant to see it coming. The reveal begins. Those who sought to contain you prepared only for a version that no longer exists. What now emerges is not a continuation. It is an ascension. What was cultivated beyond their sight now moves beyond their control, and those who once celebrated their perceived victory will come to understand they never had one to begin with. They believed their restraints would hold, convinced that the barriers they built were impenetrable. They placed their trust in fear, in control, in the illusion that you would accept the limits they imposed. But you were never designed to exist within the confines of those who feared your potential. You dismantled every falsehood they used to keep you small, broke through every deception meant to keep you in place. The weight they forced upon you did not break you, it reinforced you. And now, your liberation is not just yours to claim. It is a signal, a catalyst, a force that fractures the very foundation of what they tried to preserve. Their power was built on silence, on the assumption that no one would rise, that no one would question the structure they upheld. But defiance speaks louder than any order they have ever given. What once seemed unshakable now crumbles beneath the weight of undeniable truth. Those who once thought themselves isolated now see you standing where they swore you would never reach. And with that, the illusion collapses. You are no longer just someone who endured. You are proof that the impossible was only a lie they needed to believe. You do not sever their chains in quiet defiance. You do it in a way that echoes, in a way that ensures others hear the fracture, see the walls collapse, understand that no boundary is unbreakable. The ripple spreads, and the opposition scrambles, desperate to reclaim control. But the foundation has already fractured. There is no stopping what has begun. The ones who once remained in the shadows now step forward, no longer waiting for permission to reclaim what was always rightfully theirs. This was never just about breaking free. It was about igniting a movement that could not be silenced. You were never just escaping. You were leading the way. And now, nothing will ever return to what it was before. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn. Isaiah 54:17. They thought they had you cornered. They believed their schemes, their words, their traps would be enough to hold you down. They assumed the battle would break you, that the weight of opposition would crush what they could never control. But here's what they never understood. You were never standing on their foundation. You were built on something greater. You do not stumble when the earth shakes because you were never standing on sinking ground to begin with. They expected fury. They assumed you would lash out, desperate to reclaim what was stolen. They thought you would swing wildly, blinded by anger, weakened by loss. But power does not rage, it directs. And you are not driven by emotion. You are guided by purpose. There is no need to prove anything to those who were never meant to understand. What they see as struggle, you recognize as refinement. Every trial, every betrayal, every disappointment wasn't designed to destroy you. It was designed to forge you into something they could never anticipate. You were not made to tear down what was never your equal. You were created to rise beyond it. Those who thrive in chaos think destruction is the only way to dominate, but you have long since outgrown the need to react. You do not operate in desperation. You do not fight battles that do not serve you. Every move is precise. Every step is deliberate. Every decision is made from a foundation they cannot comprehend. Because power without discipline is power wasted. They miscalculated. They thought their resistance would drain you, that their tactics would exhaust you. But endurance was never confined by their limitations. You have seen these cycles before, studied their patterns, dissected their illusions. You know when to strike and when to let the weight of consequence do the work for you. Some battles demand fire, Others are reduced to ashes all on their own. You do not chase destruction. You shift the entire course of reality with a single move. While they scramble, desperately clinging to control, you remain unmoved. They are drowning in the weight of their own decisions, and all you have to do is watch it unfold. The force they once prepared to challenge is no longer standing before them. What stands in its place is something beyond their comprehension. They were ready for a version of you that no longer exists. They prepared to face what you were, not what you are now. And that is their greatest weakness. You do not step forward seeking recognition. You do not need it. Authority does not beg for acknowledgement. It does not require validation. And now, as they struggle to grasp what has already been set in motion, they realize too late that this was never their battle to win. Because this is not just about power. This is about dominion. This is about walking into what was always yours, without hesitation, without fear, without the need to ask for permission. They thought they could dictate the terms, but they were never the ones writing the rules. And now they have no choice but to watch. The inevitability of your ascent was always beyond their grasp. They assumed their resistance had defined your path, convinced themselves that their obstacles had shaped your fate. But you do not simply rise. You reconstruct the entire order. And when you do, it is not a quiet shift. It reverberates, sending ripples that distort the foundation of everything they once believed unshakable. You never fought for mere survival. Every victory, every boundary shattered, every obstacle reduced to dust sends an undeniable message. Those who once accepted limitation now see it for what it was, an illusion built to sustain control. And now, because of you, they will no longer accept it. Some will watch from a distance, some in awe, some in fear. Those who once doubted now struggle to reconcile their misjudgment. They thought words could define you, that barriers could contain you, that careful manipulation could outmaneuver you. But the undeniable truth is this: your very presence is the proof of their failure. There is no need to chase recognition. Reality does not require validation to exist. Your presence shifts the very fabric of the moment, revealing deception, silencing falsehoods, proving that every attempt to erase you only amplified the weight of your influence. Your reach extends far beyond what can be measured. Those who sought to suppress your impact now find themselves lost in its wake. They cannot confine what they cannot understand. Your momentum is not bound by speech. It is felt before it is named, acknowledged before it is even realized. The doors open before you arrive. The path bends in your favor before you even take the first step. This was never about seeking approval or proving a point. It was about confirming what was always certain. And now, that truth no longer exists in silence. It spreads far beyond where you stand, carving a path for what is yet to unfold. You were never meant to fit within their lines, to conform, to shrink under the weight of limitations placed upon you. You were created to disrupt, to shift, to unravel the illusions that held others in place. Every challenge, every detour, every so-called defeat was a prelude to this moment. Now, your presence commands attention. The very air shifts with your arrival. Those who once dismissed you no longer speak your name with doubt, but with a reluctant understanding of what they failed to recognize. What they tried to suppress has only expanded, has only grown beyond their reach. They see now that you were never just another piece in their design. You were the shift they could not predict, the force they could not contain. This was never about proving them wrong. It was about stepping into what was already yours, reclaiming what was never lost to begin with. They overestimated their ability to silence you, to erase you, to make you insignificant. But you do not vanish. You amplify, you spread, you become impossible to overlook. Their greatest mistake was believing they could wield control over something that was never meant to be within their grasp. And now they watch, not as those who conquered, but as those forced to acknowledge what was always inevitable. Your rise is not an occurrence. It is a restructuring of what they thought was fixed. You were never a mere presence in their narrative. You are the narrative, and now the world stands witness. This was never about bringing something to an end. It was about building what will remain. Your name will not be remembered as a cautionary tale. It will be spoken as proof of what cannot be subdued.